It started with a single dealer in Florida slashing prices by 35% overnight. Within 48 hours, every major outboard manufacturer followed. What began as a desperate attempt to clear inventory has become the industry's most brutal battle for survival in 40 years. Right now, behind closed doors, Mercury, Yamaha, and Suzuki are making decisions that will determine whether you pay $20,000 or $40,000 for your next motor. Dealers with millions in inventory are choosing between bankruptcy and betraying decades-old partnerships. And for the first time ever, Chinese manufacturers are circling like sharks, ready to devour what's left. This isn't just a sale. This is an all-out war that's destroying profit margins, ending careers, and reshaping an entire industry. By the time this is over, half the dealers you know today won't exist. But if you understand what's really happening, you could save tens of thousands on your next outboard. The price war has begun, and what happens next will change everything. 6 months ago, the marine industry was celebrating what looked like another golden year. Mercury Marine's revolutionary V10 outboards were selling faster than they could build them. Dealers from Miami to Seattle were adding $10,000 markups to already premium prices, and customers were paying without hesitation. The new Yamaha 425 XTO commanded $48,000, with waiting lists stretching into 2025. Suzuki's flagship DF350A was backordered for 8 months. It seemed the boom that started during the pandemic would never end. The numbers told a story of unstoppable growth. First quarter revenues across the industry had jumped 18% year over year. The average outboard motor, which cost $19,000 in 2020, was now selling for $28,500. Dealer profit margins on premium models ranged from 22% to 28%. These weren't just motors anymore. They were status symbols, investments, proof that American recreational boating had entered a new era of prosperity. At boat shows from Fort Lauderdale to Vancouver, the atmosphere was electric. Manufacturers unveiled increasingly powerful engines with digital displays, joystick controls, and smartphone integration. The message was clear: bigger, faster, smarter, and yes, more expensive. Floor financing was cheap, interest rates were manageable, and buyers seemed willing to pay whatever it took to get on the water with the latest technology. But by July, something subtle began to shift. Boat registrations, the industry's most reliable health indicator, dropped 12% month over month. Dealers started noticing a change in customer behavior. The same buyers who would have signed immediately 6 months earlier were now walking away from deals, asking for time to think, shopping around. Service departments reported a surge in repair requests for older motors. People who had been ready to upgrade were suddenly interested in keeping their existing engines running. The first warning came from an unexpected source. A dealer in Tampa noticed his inventory aging past 90 days for the first time in 3 years. Then came reports from Texas, California, Oregon. The phones weren't ringing. The showrooms were getting quieter. By August, what dealers were whispering about privately became impossible to ignore publicly. BRP, the parent company of Evinrude's successor line, issued a carefully worded press release about a strategic inventory adjustment. Translation: 8,000 unsold units sitting in warehouses. Mercury Marine's quarterly report revealed something more alarming: $340 million in what they called aging inventory. Yamaha, usually conservative with production, quietly extended dealer floor plan financing by 6 months. The manufacturers knew something was wrong, but nobody wanted to be first to admit it. The real crisis was happening at the dealer level. Floor plan financing, the credit line dealers use to stock inventory, had climbed from 3.5% to nearly 9% in just 18 months. Every unsold outboard was now hemorrhaging money. A dealer in Fort Myers spelled it out in brutal detail. 127 outboards worth $3.2 million, with monthly carrying costs approaching $30,000. Sell or die became the unspoken mantra across the industry. Then came the disruption nobody saw coming. Chinese manufacturers. Parsun and Hidea Motors appeared on Amazon at 40% below traditional brands. A 60-horsepower outboard for $49.99, shipped free. Forums lit up with debates about quality versus price. For the first time in decades, American buyers were seriously considering alternatives to the Big Four: Mercury, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Honda. The psychological shift was profound. Boat owners who had always bought American or Japanese suddenly questioned why they were paying premium prices. Social media amplified every horror story about failed motors, denied warranties, and astronomical repair bills. YouTube channels dedicated to outboard repairs saw their viewership triple. The message was spreading. Maybe that $50,000 motor wasn't worth it after all. Behind boardroom doors, emergency meetings stretched into the night. Manufacturing executives who had planned for perpetual growth suddenly faced a reality they hadn't modeled: demand destruction. The COVID boom hadn't created new boaters. It had simply pulled forward 5 years of future sales into 2 years. Now the bill was coming due. Black Friday 2024 will be remembered as the day the marine industry's pricing discipline shattered. Mercury fired first, announcing a 25% holiday pricing adjustment on all models. Within 48 hours, Yamaha responded with 30% cuts. Suzuki followed at 28%. Honda, desperate to maintain relevance, dropped prices 22%. What started as seasonal discounting had become mutually assured destruction. The numbers were staggering. A Mercury Verado 600 that listed for $52,000 in October was suddenly $39,000. Yamaha's premium 425 XTO dropped from $48,000 to $33,600. Dealers who had bought inventory at old wholesale prices were now selling below their cost just to generate cash flow. One dealer in Louisiana sold 17 motors in a single day and lost money on every single one. West Marine reported a 400% surge in outboard sales during the first week of December. But this wasn't celebration, it was panic selling. 3 major dealership chains filed for creditor protection before Christmas. Marina operators watched in disbelief as decades-old businesses shuttered overnight. A Miami dealer who had survived Hurricane Andrew, the 2008 recession, and COVID closed after 47 years. His final statement was bitter. "We couldn't compete with our own manufacturers selling direct online at prices below our wholesale cost." The human toll mounted quickly. 1,200 marine industry employees lost their jobs in the fourth quarter. Service departments overwhelmed with warranty claims as manufacturers cut quality to reduce costs, started turning away work. Mechanics who had been booked solid for months suddenly had empty bays. The ecosystem that had supported recreational boating for generations was collapsing in real time. Brunswick Corporation, Mercury's parent company, saw its stock crater 18% in a single trading session. Analysts downgraded the entire marine sector. The financial press, which had ignored boating for years, suddenly covered the story like a tech bubble burst. $2.1 billion in market value evaporated in 60 days. The race to the bottom had no winners, only survivors. Understanding why this happened requires examining 3 converging forces that created the perfect storm. First, manufacturers had fundamentally miscalculated demand. They projected continued COVID-era sales of 2.3 million units annually. Reality delivered 1.4 million. The excess production didn't just sit in warehouses. It became a ticking financial bomb as interest rates rose and storage costs mounted. The financing trap caught everyone off guard. When the Federal Reserve raised rates, a $50,000 outboard suddenly required monthly payments approaching $950 over standard terms. Boat loan defaults surged 340% year over year. The easy money that had fueled the boom evaporated, leaving buyers and dealers stranded with debt they couldn't service. Perhaps most critically, the industry hit a technology plateau. Despite marketing claims, there had been no breakthrough innovations since 2021. The motors from 2018 performed nearly identically to 2024 models, just with fancier displays. Buyers recognized this truth. Why pay $50,000 for marginal improvements when their current motor worked perfectly fine? The direct-to-consumer pivot by Mercury Marine created channel conflict that destroyed decades of carefully built relationships. When manufacturers started selling online at prices 15% below dealer wholesale, they essentially declared war on their own distribution network. Dealers felt betrayed, customers felt confused, and the traditional handshake agreements that built the industry crumbled overnight. A marine industry analyst who requested anonymity explained the deeper implications. This isn't just a correction. It's a restructuring that will leave 3 or 4 major brands standing while others merge or exit. By 2026, we'll see half as many dealers controlling twice the market share. The mom-and-pop marina dealer is finished. The data supports this grim prediction. Independent dealers have already dropped 35% year-over-year. Meanwhile, large chains with capital reserves are acquiring distressed competitors for pennies on the dollar. The consolidation isn't just changing who sells motors. It's fundamentally altering how Americans access and maintain their boats. For boat buyers, 2025 represents an unprecedented opportunity. Outboard motors are priced at 2010 levels while incorporating a decade of technological advancement. But this bargain comes with serious caveats. Fewer dealers means longer drives for service. Warranty support becomes questionable when manufacturers are cutting costs everywhere. The dealer who sold you that discounted motor might not exist when you need repairs next season. The transformation extends beyond traditional brands. Chinese manufacturers are positioned to capture 15 to 20% market share by 2027. Their quality has improved dramatically, and at 40% below traditional pricing, they're becoming impossible to ignore. Electric outboards, waiting in the wings for years, suddenly look competitive when a gas motor's price advantage disappears. The disruption everyone predicted for 2030 is arriving 5 years early. What emerges from this price war won't resemble the industry that entered it. Vertical integration will accelerate, with manufacturers either buying dealers directly or abandoning them entirely for online sales. Service will shift from dealers to independent mechanics, mobile technicians, and DIY solutions. The relationship between boater and brand, once mediated by local dealers who knew your name and your boat's history, will become as transactional as buying a laptop. Yet something deeper is shifting. For 40 years, the marine industry built itself on exclusivity, premium pricing, and the promise that bigger and more expensive meant better. This price war has shattered that mythology. The water doesn't care about your motor's brand or price tag. Fish don't swim faster away from cheaper engines. The sunset looks the same whether you paid $20,000 or $50,000 to reach it. As we enter 2025, the price war isn't ending. It's teaching us that innovation without accessibility is just expensive nostalgia. The industry that emerges will be leaner, more efficient, and ironically, more honest about what it's really selling. Not status or cutting-edge technology, but simple freedom on the water. The question isn't whether you'll pay less for an outboard. It's whether the industry that remains will remember why people go boating in the first place.